friends posing.
The Prime Minister's recent trip signalled Australia is back in business with China.
Trade is very much a win-win proposition for China, as it is for us.
I'm honoured and proud to head off to China this evening on my first visit as Premier.
Victorian premiers, past and present, are now making their own pilgrimage, hoping to benefit from Chinese investment.
It used to be a time when state governments dealt with state governments in China, what are called provinces. Cities dealt with cities.
But that's changed. China historian John Fitzgerald has researched how China attempts to influence Australian state and territory governments. He says premiers doing deals with China's central government is a risk.
Victoria's gone out of the way now for over a decade in trying to set up links between Victoria, or let's say Melbourne, and Beijing, which is wholly inappropriate and can impact adversely on Australia as a whole if we don't get it right.
Former Australian ambassador to China, Jeff Raby, says risks can be managed.
It's obviously being alert to potential pitfalls, but recognising, of course, that it is perfectly legitimate and desirable for state governments to be in China promoting Australia, well, in this case, Victoria's commercial strengths.
Education, education, education.
On the first day of her 5-day trip to China, Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen inked a deal with China's Minister for Education, Huai Jinpeng.
Victoria and China signed a memorandum of understanding to officially establish that education working group and take our partnership to the highest level.
It promises to look to set up exchanges from kindergarten all the way through high school, through TAFE to universities. And if people in the Victorian community don't feel comfortable with that, and there's any pushback against that from within Victoria, against her educational initiative, then the government of China would be deeply offended if Victoria in any way reneged on that deal. And the way it shows it's offended is not to target Victoria, it's to target Australia.
7:30 asked the Premier's office for a copy of the Memorandum of Understanding signed by Jacinta Allen and the Chinese Education Minister. We were told it was confidential and that it will be registered with the Commonwealth. It's not the first time Victoria has signed a deal with the central government.
Victoria is virtually the only state in Australia which signs state to central government deals. It's just inappropriate.
In 2018, then Victorian Premier Dan Andrews signed a Memorandum of Understanding to be part of the controversial Belt and Road Initiative. The agreement was still being fleshed out when it was torn up by the Morrison government 3 years later. And China responded.
I think it was the National Development Reform Commission cancelled or put on ice Australia's strategic and economic dialogue with China after the federal government overruled Victoria's Belt and Road Initiative agreement.
The deal promised greater cooperation in trade and finance, and also encouraged Chinese infrastructure firms to establish a presence in Victoria and bid for major projects.
I don't think there are any national security risks, but there was a question over responsibility for foreign policy. And there was a feeling, I think, particularly by former colleagues of mine in Canberra, that states should not be able to, if you like, freelance in the foreign policy space.
Former federal Labor MP Michael Danby was chair of the Foreign Relations Committee.
What people don't understand is they wrap economic issues into a political strategy. So therefore, you agree to an investment, but it's part of a political strategy, and it's unrelenting, pushed all the time.
During his time as Premier, Dan Andrews visited China 7 times in 8 years.
He went, as Jacinta Allen went this time, saying it's all about trade, it's about education, it's about investment. All to the good. But the yield wasn't great.
Foreign investment figures from 2006 to 2023 show New South Wales was the top pick for Chinese investors, accounting for 35%. Victoria took a 22% share, with 20% for WA. Plans for Jacinta Allen's trip were overshadowed by the appearance of Dan Andrews at China's 80th anniversary celebration of its victory over Japan in World War II.
To appear as the only democratic leader on a dais with Kim Jong-un, Mr. Putin, who's killing people every night in Kiev and Kharkiv, and the Chinese leader himself is like a bridge too far. Dan, you didn't need to do that.
He says in recent years, the Victorian Labor Party has gone quiet over China's record.
Frankly, since he became Premier, Victoria and the Victorian Labor Party have ceased all criticism of human rights abuses in China. The Uyghur Muslim people, nearly 2 million of them are in concentration camps.
In terms of the human rights records of China, are you concerned about that, or will you be raising any of these issues on this trip?
Our agenda is very clear, and that is to make sure the businesses will benefit from this delegation.
Also leading a delegation in China this week, Melbourne City Councillor Gladys Liu and Lord Mayor Nicholas Rees.
I'll be meeting mayors of some of the biggest cities in the world and letting them know that Melbourne is open for business.
We are not going for fun, we are going for business. So if you see our itineraries, it is jam-packed.
The former federal Liberal MP is hoping to lure Chinese students to Melbourne.
Melbourne is ranked the most friendly city in the world, the second most inclusive city in the world, and also the fourth, the most livable city in the world. So these are the things that I want to present to people in China.
In the first 6 months of this year, there are about 740,000 international students in Australia. When it comes to Chinese students, New South Wales takes the lead with just over 80,000. Victoria ranks second with just over 50,000. After China, the delegation will head to Japan. Nicholas Rees says it's estimated the total benefit to Melbourne will be $19 million.
The economic outcome is an estimate based on the current MOUs and trade agreements we're looking to sign while we are there.
But closer ties could come at a cost. In 2019, Melbourne City Council chose not to commemorate the anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre because of pressure from the Chinese consulate.
There are many people on council from time to time who felt very, very concerned about the level of Chinese government influence over the Melbourne City Council.
How can you ensure that your decision-making won't be clouded after this trip?
Well, I am very much the Lord Mayor of Melbourne. I know who my boss is. That is the people of Melbourne.
The state government and council will be hoping these trips will bring good fortune to a cash-strapped Victoria and electoral success for Jacinta Allen next year.
You've got to get the Chinese Australian community on board for the forthcoming state election 2026. This gives her plenty of photo opportunities.